Hello, ladies. Welcome. I noticed that some of you are already waiting. So we're going to wait until, I'm going to turn my ringer off here. We're going to wait until some other ladies join us. There's a little bit of a delay. So I see Jessica Seacrest is here. Sklitch. I don't know how you say that. Dorothy Goss. So we'll just wait for a minute. I turn my ringer off. Wendy Polanco. Hey, girl. How are you? Salvation, Eterna in Cristo, Hope, which I believe is Sierra. Sierra, are you Hope? Or Shara? Is it Shara? Sierra? Shara Hope, I think. Sky, wife in her youth. Hi. Hi, Ruth. Shara, there we go. Kelly Logan. Yeah, I hope to see you again too, Wendy. When was the last time I saw you? I saw you at the Detroit conference, I believe, right? Kirsten. Okay, so yeah, tonight I wanted to talk about a subject. I have been noticing this a lot, and it's not, obviously I have not raised children all the way through their dating years, but I wanted to talk even more specifically about younger children and teaching them to have relationships with others, because I've noticed a dearth when it comes to this in a lot of families. And okay, homeschool families are knocked for this a lot, but this is not just a homeschooling family problem. I've taught piano for many, many years, and I have had this with public school kids. I've had Christian school kids. I've had homeschooled kids. And some of the most social kids I've had are homeschooling kids. So this is not just a homeschooling problem. I know homeschoolers get stereotyped as being antisocial or whatever, but hi, Amber. So yeah, this is definitely a problem in any type of home if the parents don't train their children when it comes to this. Because like I put in the description, we live in a very technology-based world. We have lots of communication. We've got lots of social media, yet relationships are suffering more now than they ever have. And I believe a lot of it comes down to parents not training their children how to have relationships with other people. And it doesn't matter, if your child is shy. A lot of times I've found, and I'm not just saying this because I'm an extrovert, because I have children that are shy, and I've really had to push them out of their comfort zones. But I've found that a lot of people use shyness as an excuse for not being friendly or, not wanting to step outside of their comfort zone. So I'm just going to start. Now, when it comes to kids' relationship with others, this is not only a dating talk. This starts when they're young. This starts when they're really, really young. From the time they're born, okay? What I've always done with my children is from the time they're born, I talk to them. I talk to Kelly all the time, and she's only 4 weeks old today. So you have to, start early. Start by talking to them. Interact with them. Don't just ignore them, leave them in their swing all the time, cuddle them, love them, talk to them, read to them. Really just encourage communication from the beginning. Encourage them as they grow older to talk to other people. Now, I know a lot of parents, there's stranger danger. And you do want to teach your children to be careful of talking to strangers or going with strangers. But with me, from the time that they're little and someone waves at them, if the child is being bashful or whatever, I don't force it. Obviously, you don't ever force your children to go with people. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm just talking about interacting with them, communication-wise. I'll tell them, say hi, wave hi to the lady, wave hi to the man or whatever. And then if they ask them a question, I'll encourage my children to answer back. I will try not to answer for them. That's something parents do a lot. Let's say you have a lady standing behind you in the checkout lane, and she's like, "Oh, how old are you?" Talking to your 3 or 4-year-old. And the mom will say, "Oh, she's 4." I try not to step in. I try to encourage, tell her how old you are, tell her your name or whatever. And obviously, like I said, you don't want to go overboard. You never leave your children with anyone. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about encouraging them to communicate. So, also from the time that they're little, this might be something very small, but one thing that we've always done with our children is we have encouraged them when we've been places to pay for their own things. So like if we go into gas stations, and you would be surprised. It's funny because the gas station clerks are actually surprised when I have, like my 4-year-old Lana pay for something. They're like, oh, wow, I'm shocked that, she can do that. But I'll give her the money and I'll have her pay for her items. And that's just another thing. It's teaching them to interact with the person. It's teaching them to engage. I actually only have a couple kids that are pretty shy. If any of you guys know my kids, they're pretty social kids. In fact, some of my church ladies that are watching this, I have Chloe and Allie especially, and well, even Lana too. All my girls will talk your ear off at church. And so they're very social kids. The whole, homeschool kids aren't socialized is just a myth. First of all, because my children are in church at least 3 times a week. And so 3 times a week, they are interacting with children. They're interacting with adults, and they're learning social skills just by, we have a lot of fellowship at our church. A lot of times on Sundays, we stay the whole day. So they're interacting with children the entire day, or interacting with adults the entire day. They go out soul winning with us. That's another good way to teach your children how to interact. And they see you interacting with people. They see you interacting with polite people. They see you interacting with rude people. They see you interacting with angry people that are slamming the door in your face because you dared to knock on their door. So they see you interacting and they learn from this. And that's another thing too, even with the gospel. They learn the gospel at a young age. They're hearing the gospel over and over when you take them out soul winning. Obviously, I've not taken the baby out soul winning yet. It has been like, what was it? 2 weeks ago, we had -50 below temperatures. So I'm not going to be taking a newborn out on that. I have not taken her out soul winning yet, but in the spring, I will be taking her along with me in my baby carrier. So she's going to be hearing the gospel from a teeny tiny age, and that's really good for them too. So the whole non-socialization thing is a total myth when it comes to homeschooling. There are some homeschooling families that have children that are very socially awkward, but that's not because they're homeschooled. It's because the parents haven't really pushed them not to be. So yes, Jessica, it was very, very cold. You can go away. So you need to encourage them to talk to others. That's one big thing. I remember my husband's sisters, I don't know if they even watch this, but when they were younger, they were terrified of paying for their, item. They wouldn't even order their food at like a fast food place. So what we've done with our kids is we've even sent Allie up there to order her own food, as we're watching. And we've sent Lana up there to even order her own food because that just makes her more bold and have some, it teaches them to go out of their comfort zone. So teach respect, especially when it comes to adults. You want to teach your children to look adults in the eye when they're talking to them. Teach them not to mumble. A lot of children mumble. I'll even sometimes with little kids, I'll kind of get down on their level when I'm talking to them. I'll kind of stoop down so I'm looking right at them. And you can tell the children whose parents are very engaged in their lives, who the parents who train their children and the parents who teach their children things. You can tell which children those are. And you can tell the ones that are just awkward when it comes to talking to adults. And there's a difference between, not knowing how to interact with someone and being shy. There are a couple children that are more shy, but they've still been taught, that they need to talk to people. I remember, was it Chloe, which you would never know now, but Chloe, when she was really, really little, she was very wary of like even her uncles. I think it was Chloe that was. And so we had to kind of, teach her now when, your uncles are talking to you, you need to look at them, you need to respond. She would try ignoring them. So they would ask her a question or say something and she would just completely ignore them. So we really had to work with her. I'm like, you're not going to ignore people when they talk to you. You need to give them an answer. So teach your children to look people in the eyes, speak up, don't mumble. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am is good. Yes, sir, no, sir. To be respectful of adults. And another thing, too, that I like to teach my children is that all adults, I never let them go by their first names. Like, let's say we have Miss Heidi and Brother Mark in our church. So it's Miss Heidi and it's Brother Mark. It's not ever Heidi or ever Mark. Pastors, pastor so-and-so. It's not ever their first name and their last name. You want to teach them respect when it comes to things. So pastors are always pastor. It's not, I don't know who's a pastor. It's not Stephen Anderson. It's Pastor Anderson. You teach them respect. And then same with adults. It's never their first name. It's always, Miss Heidi, Brother Mark, Miss Morgan, Brother Matt. It's never just their name. That's a big thing with me. And I've even been known to correct children in the church that call me Cassandra. I'll say that. Or my kids are real quick on it too. They'll be like, don't call my mom Cassandra. Her name is Miss Cassandra. So they're very quick to correct people that do it, that call me just by my first name. And it's something that's not really taught. A lot of children, they just have no respect when it comes to adults. So they will just call them, hey, Frank, or hey, Susie. And that's a very disrespectful thing. And that's something that has to be taught. So I've always been very adamant with my children. It's brother and it's, miss. So for children, is it Miss and not Mrs.? Yes, I don't know if that's just something that we used to do at our old church. Everyone was Miss, even if they were married. Sometimes I've heard my children calling them Mrs. with their first name, but I don't know why it's always Miss. And then even with me, when I'm talking to children, I'm like, my name is Miss Cassie, or my name is Miss Cassandra. So I don't know. I think that's easier to say than Mrs. Cassandra. And it's Miss Cassie, and Miss Cassandra is way easier to say than Mrs. McMurtry or, Miss McMurtry. Miss McMurtry wouldn't really sound right. So Ms. means either or, right, correct, I believe so. But Ms, grammatically, yes, I believe it does mean either or, Ms. But I always just say Miss with my kids. And that's just a preference. You can train your children to call them by, if they're married, Mrs., if they're single, Miss. But I've just found it's easier to go by Miss. Can I correct another child to not call me just by my name? I do. I would. I'm more bold when it comes to that type of thing, but yes, I would. Kirsten said I even called my parents by their first names. They were very progressive. That is progressive. I don't want my children calling me by my first name. So, and then I would teach them, encourage interaction. Oh, I already talked a little bit about this, but encourage interaction, have them pay at stores, carry on conversations with people. I don't know for you guys, but for me, if I'm bored and I'm standing in a Walmart line or Aldi's line, I will talk to whoever's in line. I carry a conversation with anyone. Since I live in Illinois, some people will respond, and then some people look at you like you're crazy, like, why are you talking to me? I don't know you. But it's kind of half and half when it comes to Illinois. So my children see me. They see me out talking to people. They see me talking to people in the stores and carrying on conversations. So that's a good thing too. So teach them to be a conversationalist. Okay, this is important. There are going to be shy kids, but you need to push them out of their comfort zone and encourage interaction, etc. And like I said, a lot of people I see using their shyness as an excuse. One thing that always impressed me about my mom growing up was that I knew she was a very shy person. She was always shy. She was more of an introvert. And as she grew up, she has a really pretty voice. And a lot of time we were in a Baptist church and they would have specials. Our church has specials as well. And they would ask her to sing. And so she would sing, but it was always a struggle for her because she was so shy and so afraid of messing up. And Lana, don't crawl on the floor. You're going to unplug it again. Stand up, okay?
Okay.
What are you trying to do? Don't trip over the cords.
I'm trying to get something to eat.
You're trying to get, what are you going to get to eat?
Didn't think of something.
Are you going to think of something? Okay, just do it quietly and don't trip over the cords. Telling Lana not to unplug it. So where was I? My mom, yeah. So she would go up there to sing, and it was always a struggle for her, but she always did it. And that even as a young child, I remember that because I remember how afraid she was and how nervous she would be, and I could see her shaking. But she would push herself, and she would get up there and she would sing, and just to be a blessing to other people. And that made an impression on me. And I've never really had the problem of being shy, but it's still impressed on me that I needed to do something when I wasn't comfortable. And there's been a lot of things that I've had to do. Even when it came to, teaching piano, I was asked to teach a class it was like a mother baby class with the parents had the children. And that pushed me out of my comfort zone. But I did it, and it soon became, like second nature. So sometimes you just have to push your kids. And a lot of children can use shyness as an excuse if maybe they don't feel like talking to anyone. They just want to be in their own little bubble. But you as the parent, you need to train your children to, to step out of their comfort zone when it comes to that. No, you're not a bad influence. But you know what, Kirsten, I saw you. Kirsten said, I was wondering if I was being a bad influence on my children because I get so scared and stressed about singing. But you're still singing and they're seeing you do that. So, I mean, my mom got very scared because I think she had maybe a lot like your personality, just more introverted and more private. And she would always get stressed and scared too, but she would do it. So I think that's making a good impression on your children when you actually do something that makes you nervous. They need to see that there's things that make you nervous, but yet you still overcome and you do them. I think that's really important for your children to see. So that's just my opinion. So, teach them to initiate conversation with others. I've seen this a lot I've been in Baptist church my whole life. And there's a lot of Baptist churches that become very, very cliquish where, every church has them. They have their little social groups and everyone just kind of stays in that social group. Now, the church that we started, we haven't really had that. So, and I think a lot of bigger churches tend to get this, we're still right at 50, 60 people. So we don't have it maybe as much as the bigger churches, but I would see a lot of women standing back, waiting for other women to take the initiative to talk to them. So I've always been one that I try to scan the crowd and I try to pick out the loners, and I will go and I will try to sit with them and talk to them because I feel bad when people are by themselves. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm an extrovert, but to me, that would be the worst, just sitting there by yourself eating. So I try to pick out the stragglers and I try to go talk to them and try to be an encouragement to them because I like talking to people. I don't know, maybe I've picked some out before that would rather sit there by themselves and eat. But for me, that's just like the worst thing. So I try to pick out the people and I try to talk to them. And I've tried to teach my girls, you guys need to make the first step. If a visitor comes, they're going to be nervous and they're going to be scared, and you need to make the first step. Don't wait for them to come talk to you. First of all, this is, my daughters have been in church their whole life, so they're comfortable with it. And this is weird and scary to the visitor. So teach your children to reach out to other people, maybe that are lonely. Teach them to make the first step. Teach them not to be just sitting around with their own little friends, ignoring everyone else. Teach them to interact and engage and teach them to be a good conversationalist. Having a conversation you have to work at it sometimes. As an adult, I've even noticed some people I click with, some people are harder to talk to. But I still try, even if it's harder to talk to someone, I still try to go to them and carry a conversation. And if the other person's not a good conversationalist, it can be kind of hard. So I've seen the the illustration where having a conversation is like you have a ball and you throw the ball to the other person. That's like a question. Hi, how are you? And so the other person catches the ball. I'm good. Now, if they just stand there and that I'm good is all they say, they're not throwing the ball back to you. So what you need to try to do is you need to keep the ball going. So the person will say, I'm good. How are you? That's throwing the ball back. And then after you catch the ball, you say, I'm great, but this happened this week. And then, so then you're throwing the ball back and then they, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Can I do anything to help? Teach your children to have a conversation. Teach them when a person says, hi, how are you? Good. Awkward silence. Okay, that's great. Have a good day. Teach them to engage with adults even when adults talk to them or, and soul winning is good. Abby's just said soul winning is nice because it teaches me how to start off a conversation. Abby is one of my shyer ones. You would not know it now though, because she's very good with, even when we go places where she doesn't know people, and they come up and talk to her or she talks to them. She's good at having a conversation now, which you would not have known that knowing her at 3 or 4. Because when she was 3 or 4, she was she's very shy by nature. And another thing that helps shyness, I'm just going to throw this has nothing to do with any of this, but music lessons and performing. This is a huge thing that I think has helped my introverted children. Now my oldest son is quite introverted and absolutely hates being in front of people. He hates talking in front of people. He hates performing in front of people, but we've made him do it because we're mean parents. And he would say, it doesn't help me. It's horrible. But I think when he's older and an adult, he's going to thank us for pushing him. And with Abby, I've really noticed it help. And she's in the next room, so she's hearing everything I'm saying. But I've really noticed with Abigail, just she's getting very good at piano, at playing the piano. And I've noticed when she has to do performances and recitals and things, that's teaching her to be more confident. She's seen that she can get up in front of 200 people and she can play a song and do beautifully at it and not fall flat on her face. So it's taught her self-confidence. And, having confidence is not a bad thing. I'm not talking about being prideful and arrogant. I'm talking about having confidence in a job well done. And if you work hard at an instrument or work hard at singing or work hard at, preparing a speech and then giving it in front of people, it's all right to be confident with the fact that you've done a good job and to go up there and to perform and to do a good job and to have a sense of pride in that accomplishment. That's not a bad thing. And I think music lessons really, really helps children when it comes to, I've noticed this with my own piano students. I've always really, really encouraged recitals because there's nothing like seeing their face after they've played a piece that they've been working on for weeks and taking their bow and hearing the applause and knowing they did a good job. So that's one thing that really, really helps with confidence is music lessons. My children used to do a fine arts competition, and that was where they would do performances and things. And like my second son, he really has a knack for acting and preaching. So he's an extrovert. He doesn't mind being in front of people. And it was always really cool to see him really work hard on a monologue, which is acting out a story. And then he would place first. Every year he did it, he placed first. So that was really cool. But another thing is, teaching your children. Amber, yeah, you did. Amber did fine arts competition. It was at her home church that she came from, a good church. So bullying is never okay. Teach them that when it comes to children. And I'm not going to say that my children have never had spats. They have. In fact, one of my, Allie, is very passionate, and she's my 8-year-old. Friends very easily, but she also can a friendship can turn into a fight with her. And so, you know what? There's going to be fights. There's going to be arguments, but teach your child to work through that. Teach your child to done wrong or he's done wrong and teach them to apologize and to make up with their friends and to smooth things over. That's all going to play as they're an adult. They're going to need to learn to deal with people. They're going to need to learn to deal with their husband. And, the boys are going to need to learn to deal with their wife, and they're going to need to learn to do what to do with arguments. I've heard of some marriages where they say that they never fight in front of their children. And we've fought in front of our children. And I don't really think that's all bad, because there's going to be fights in marriage and you're going to have disagreements. And I think it's good for your children to see you work through them and to see that no matter what, we've never threatened divorce, or even, I'm not talking about yelling constantly and throwing things at each other. I'm talking about once in a great while, a spat, a disagreement. And I'm not perfect, and my husband's not perfect. And there's going to be arguments. That's just a given. No matter how submissive of a wife you are, there's going to be arguments and there's going to be spats. And our children have seen us work through that. And they know that no matter what, we're not going anywhere. And this is going to work together forever. So, but they've also seen us work it out. And then you know what? The next day we're fine. So they see the spat, they see the argument, and the next day we're fine because we know how to work it out. So I think it's kind of good for kids to see that. Bullying is never okay. Calling names is never okay when it comes to friendships and things like that at the church. Bullying, especially, teach your children, you do not pick on people for things that they cannot help. That comes with, just physical impediments, mental things, looks. You can't help your looks, obviously. And so you teach children that bullying is never okay. I hate it when there's like 5 kids in a group and 4 kids gang up on one kid. That's never allowed. You have to teach them these things, obviously. So now, relationships with the opposite gender. I know some of you are wondering about this. Like I said, we have not raised kids fully to the marriage altar yet. We have a 17-year-old and a 16-year-old. My 17-year-old would probably get married next week if he found a girl. That's just how he is. My 16-year-old could care less right now. He could really care less. He does not care. So I have those two. They're completely night and day. But I'm just going off of we're raising 3rd generation Christians now, 3rd generation Baptists, actually. And we were 2nd generation Christians, and it worked very well for us, the method that we used. So we're going to do about the same method with our children. And that is, friendships are fine. My husband and I were friends for a good, 9 months before he finally made his move, I believe. It was about 9 months. We were really good friends. And the way we became friends is, we were both on the youth group. We were at church. Youth activities. It was only through church events. So, but, that's 3 times a week at least we were seeing each other. So that right there is a lot. Friendships are fine. I've never been one of these ones that thinks that it's just awful if a boy talks to a girl or a girl talks to a boy or whatever. I feel as long as you're in church and the parents are nearby, you can cultivate friendships. That's fine. Encourage talking to peers of own age. Encourage your children to interact. Most of the churches that you all are at, I know there's a lot of children. So encourage them to interact with each other and things like that. So teens, we actually do not allow, we don't allow our children to date until they are of marriageable age. So that's actually it hasn't happened yet. Of course, there is no girl on the scene for my son. So that hasn't even been an issue. But we did not date. My husband and I did not date until we were old enough to get married. And for us, that was right around 19 was when we started our relationship. So, I've seen teenagers that date from the time they're, 12, 13, 14, 15. And honestly, the ones that are the happiest are the ones that wait to date, because that's just too much pressure for someone that young. And especially when it comes to the hormones, why are you going to let your 13-year-old whose hormones are raging, or 15-year-old whose hormones are raging, why are you going to put him in some type of relationship where he cannot even have a physical relationship yet? So, marriage and the physical relationship go hand in hand. And that's why we do not have them. We will not let them date until they're old enough to get married, because we like short engagements too. We were engaged 6 months, and that was almost too long. So I push short engagements. If you know that the person is the one for you, why would you wait a long time? Especially when you can't have a physical relationship, why would you wait a long time? That's just putting yourself into danger. So no dating until marriage will age. Interacting at church is fine, but no one-on-one. And one-on-one is texting, social media, phone calls, things like that. And we will do that, as the time comes. I tell my son he better not get the phone number of any girl. He just started a job at Pizza Ranch, and I'm like, you better not ever. If I can get on your phone at any time. He does have a phone because he's driving and things, and I'm like, I can get on it at any time. I know his password. I said I can see everything you sent. I can look it all over, so don't you ever forget that. So he knows I can get on his phone at any time and see what he's been on. No social media accounts until they're adults or they're married. My children don't have Facebook. They don't need Facebook. They don't need Twitter. It's too much temptation. There's too many things that they can see. There's too much that they can get into on a smartphone, on a computer. My son has a YouTube channel, and that's the extent of it. He doesn't have, there's no Facebook or anything like that. And, they're learning too, my husband and I, our phones are not locked. My children can get on my phone, my husband's phone. They're on my Instagram. My girls are on my Instagram all the time looking at pictures. So they're on my stuff, and they're on my phone all the time. They can see that, I don't have a lock on it, because I'm not looking at anything I shouldn't be on my phones. And, so, they get on my social media and they'll look at stuff sometimes, but there's no way that a child needs a social media account. There's been too many things happen through Facebook, through the messenger. They're not mature enough to handle it at their age, all the responsibility that comes with it. If you've not noticed, people get into a lot of trouble on social media with their mouth, or I should say their fingers. They get into trouble a lot. And I just don't think that children are emotionally and just mentally mature enough to handle that at that age. So once they get married, that kind of calms them down. They have more responsibility. The boys have to work and provide, and it just makes them grow up faster. So once they're out of the house and they're married, that's up to them if they want it. But as long as they're in my house, they're not going to have social media accounts. So once they start dating, always chaperoned. And that was my husband and I. I remember the first time that we were alone, we were driving away from our wedding reception. And it was such a weird feeling, because we'd always had to have I'm the oldest of 5. He's the oldest of 5. So his sisters were always with, or mine were always with. And so when we drove away, it was the weirdest. It was a great feeling, but it was the weirdest feeling, because we just kept waiting for, an annoying little voice to pop up or something, because they were pretty young at the time. Jessica said, my husband and I met online, but I was 23 and he was 32, and my parents monitored everything. I also had my dad call his pastor to make sure he was legit. That's nice that your parents monitored it. That's nice that you put yourself under them, even though you were 23 and he was 32. And when you're willing to do that, it just shows, I think it just shows you that you're genuine and you have a good heart. When you're willing to humble yourself and put yourself under authority, that really shows a lot about you, I believe. Dorothy said, would you feel comfortable getting an app that would send all the text straight to your phone so you can monitor your children's messages? Yes. I love that. In fact, I think Mrs. Anderson talked about an app, and it was funny because she got it for her sons, and her son texts my son sometimes. And so every text that my son sends to hers, she can see as well. And it was funny because they set off an alarm or something one time because my husband, or not my husband, my son Tommy said something about wanting to kill himself or something because I don't know, he had to do something. I don't know if it's work or what, but saying that he felt like killing himself, and she got like a suicide alert. It was like suicide alert because this message was sent. So I thought that was hilarious that she got a suicide alert. So yeah, I do like that app. I can't remember what it's called. She said something about it recently on one of her videos. But yeah, if I would be very comfortable getting an app where I could see all the text and everything. So I think that's a great idea. I think your children need to know that they're watching, that you're watching over everything that they do. I think that's good. And then, and the people that knock this kind of thing usually are not raising very good children. Okay. They get on to us for being too strict, or guardian is what it was called. And they get onto us for being too strict or whatever. But we're just protecting our children. We want the best for our children. And, this is not 100% foolproof. Children have some natures, and some children will be sneaky and they will try to find ways around it. And then even, I wanted to throw this in there too, even if you do everything perfect and your children marry pure and they get to the wedding, the marriage altar pure, everything seems great. Human beings are human beings, and there's a sin nature. And even if you do everything 100% right, you're marrying an imperfect person. And sometimes they turn out to be horrible. In fact, I just heard of recently a girl that I know, her husband's walking away from her and leaving her she's tried everything to keep their marriage together. And they've only been married a few years. And she's tried everything in her power to keep it together, but he wants nothing to do with it. So sometimes that's going to happen. And I feel horrible for those people. But chances are, you are starting out, if you do things carefully with your children and you try to put boundaries in their lives and you try to have guidelines, this will help them get into marriage with no baggage. When my husband and I got married, there was no baggage. We came to the altar pure and we learned everything together. We learned everything about the physical relationship together. We've only ever been with each other. So we are all that we know. There's no one else to compare him to. He has no one to compare me to. So we are our one and only. And that does help eliminate a lot of the bad stuff that comes along with having a past. So, and this is in no way slamming those of you that do have a past, because you can overcome and you can work through it. But as you have to be honest, even the ones that have married someone, maybe with children, you're doing great and you've overcome a lot, but it takes a lot of work, and it's probably a lot more work for people that have that, starting out marriage. So I'm not going to say that nothing is perfect. Sometimes things will still fail due to your sin nature and due to choices and things. But, starting out the right way, chances are that's going to give you a better footing into your marriage and a better foundation. So those are just some thoughts I had. Does anyone have any questions or comments about anything that I've said? I'll wait and see if you guys have any questions. Usually I can see how many people are watching, but I can't tonight. I don't know why that's not up here. It just has a little, usually there's like showing how many are online right now. But I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing any questions. Oh, 43. You guys can see it. I can't see it. Usually it's on my screen. Has anyone watching, have you done it the way that I'm talking about? Have you, I know Jessica said that her parents monitored everything. Have any of you done it this way? Or did you just do the conventional dating? My dad was a great, Jessica says, my dad was a great judge of character, and I knew if I trusted him, I would find the right one. To the young people, listen to those who are a spiritual leader. It will be great in the long run. And you are absolutely correct. And you know what? Dads are going to be better judges of character because they've been around longer, for one. Also, he is a guy. So he's gonna know what to look for in a guy. He's gonna know if a guy's lying, if a guy's a sleazeball. He's gonna be able to pick up on that stuff. So listen to him. And then also with the mom, listen to your mom if you're a guy when it comes to the girl that you're interested in. You know, a pretty face is great, but if she's a horrible nag, she's going to make your life miserable. So, yep, Kimberly, I remember your daughter and Remy did things the way that we did, the chaperone dating. It gets old after a while, but it keeps you from trying to do anything. It keeps you from even thinking about trying to do anything. So that's probably, we're going to do that for all of our children. It worked very well for my husband and I. It was very annoying when we were going through it. I'm not going to lie. And I want a short engagement for my children. Once they find who they want to marry, I want it to be a short engagement. But I believe, I think me and all my sisters did chaperone dating. But you know, you have to figure out, before your children get to this point, you need to figure out how you're going to do it. Don't, when they're 17 years old and they're like, hey, mom, I'm interested in a girl, don't sit down and say, okay, honey, we need to figure out how we're going to do this. Have a plan set in place from the beginning. And my son, my 17-year-old son, gives me a hard time all the time. But first of all, there's not even a girl here. So I don't know why he's even giving me a hard time. And second of all, you know, kids that are 17, he's not ready to get married. He's working at Pizza Ranch. So I told him, I said, you know what, start saving your money. I said, you're living at home. You don't have any bills, barely. He has a couple bills, like his insurance, and he's paying off the truck that he bought for my husband. But I said, you know, you don't have many bills, so just save up your money and then try to get a good job and save up that money. And then when you're ready, God will send her along. So Mrs. Jones said, I wish my parents had done chaperone dating. Our kids are 5 and 3 and will be when they are of age. Good. So you already have a plan. She's got a plan set in place for her children. Is it Genesis or Hennessy? I used to know a girl, and her name was, she spelled it like you, but we pronounced it Hennessy. She said, my husband and I did it pretty much like you and your husband, except we didn't have chaperones. We didn't kiss till the wedding day, but I believe that chaperones are a great idea for our children. If you didn't have chaperones, you showed a lot of strength and a lot of patience by not kissing to your wedding day. So that was good that you weren't even tempted to. Jessica said, my husband and I were 13 hours apart, so things moved quickly once I got the okay from my dad. We knew each other 7 months and 2 days when we got married. Just celebrated 10 years this August. Congratulations. It's actually, I don't know, sometimes it might be easier if you live further apart. My husband and I only lived like a half hour apart. So I think that made it hard sometimes because we were so close. We were so close to each other. I believe when my in-laws were dating, he lived in Washington, I believe, and she lived in Lincoln, Illinois. And so they had to pretty much just write letters because, of course, this was before cell phones and all that. And he talks about how hard it was. But I know my father-in-law, and I think it would have been harder for him if he would have lived like 10 minutes from my mother-in-law. So it was probably good that they had states separating them. So hopefully this was a help with when it comes to relationships with others. Oh, yes, another thing I wanted to throw in. I feel a sneeze coming out right now. But my husband we were talking about this subject, and we were talking about a lot of children that are socially awkward and how their parents don't seem to catch on that they're socially awkward, and they don't really push them to get better at it. And we believe a lot of the reason that children are, maybe they come to church, and you're a very social church. Most of the churches I know, most of the Baptist churches I know are social. And they just want to sit in their pew, and they just want to stay with their family. They don't want to talk to anyone. We think a lot of the reason is because the parents, I think, are so down on everyone. No one lives up to their, Lana, you can just get up and walk by. No one lives up to their perfect standard of excellence, whether it comes to the way they live, the way they dress, the way they talk, what car they drive. Some parents are just so down on everyone. They have a problem with everyone in their life. And kids are not stupid. They're going to pick up on that. So if you're constantly belittling other people, belittling how they're raising their kids, belittling how they're doing this, belittling how they're doing that, your kids are going to pick up on it, and they're not going to want to talk to anyone. Why would you want to talk to anyone in your church when you talk so badly about them? So I've definitely noticed that a lot of times, parents, you have to be careful with how you talk about other people. Your kids pick up on everything. They sense the hypocrisy if you're talking bad about people in your church, and then you show up at church and you're giving them hugs and how you doing and being all sweet and things like that. We've noticed a lot of children just grow up very embittered towards people. And I think it's because of the way their parents talk about other people. So, try to find the good in your church people. Try to talk them up in front of your children. Don't talk them down. You don't need to be, not everyone's going to be perfect like you. So you don't need to be putting down everyone else. Ruth asked, should the chaperone be an adult or sibling? Yeah, siblings make great chaperones, Kimberly said. We had a lot of, we never really went on a date with just our sisters, but when we were over at each other's houses and stuff, the siblings would even be in the same room or the next room, or I might have, trying to think if I ever went in a vehicle with him and some of the siblings were with, especially if they're older, they're closer to their age and they're not just 5-year-old kids or whatever. If they're teenagers, they'll tell on their sibling in a heartbeat if they try to do anything. Believe me, I know how siblings work. They're like, I saw that. I'm telling them they tried putting their finger on you. They tried going like that or something. Siblings will tell on everything. They're watching everything. They'll tell on you in a heartbeat. So siblings do make good chaperones. Hope said that's how people at school were in the lukewarm churches. Most Baptist churches I've known, we've been to a couple churches. We visited a couple churches where I was like, boy, it was chilly in there. Or they had their cliques, no one even said hi. No one introduced themselves. But most of the Baptist churches I know, and I know our church is this way, very friendly people. We try, I love our church family. My children know I love the ladies in my church and I appreciate them. And I don't come home and I'm not, oh my goodness, can you believe what this person did? Can you believe what this person did? I don't talk them down. I try to show my children that I love them and talk good about them, and a lot of families, they're just down on everyone. They're down on everyone that's not them. And then they wonder why their children want to just walk away from church when they grow up. Well, it's because you couldn't stand anyone at the church. Why would they want to stay in a church where everyone was so horrible and everyone didn't live up to your standard and everyone was just despicable and evil and wicked? Why would they want to go to a church like that? So you have to be careful about how you talk about people at home. So that's just the soapbox for the night. So anyways, I think that is it. I'm running out of things to talk about, unless all of you have something else real quick. This is a big topic for me. I've really noticed being in church my whole life that this is something that a lot of parents aren't really aware of or don't really I guess they don't think it's a big deal, but it is a big deal because your children are going to need to interact with people their whole life. And your sons are going to need to get jobs. Your daughters are going to need to know how to interact with people. I interact with people almost on a daily basis, even just when it comes to, just living life, just making doctor's appointments and having, interacting with your midwife and interacting with nurses and interacting with people at the grocery store or people that you pay bills to. You have to teach your children how to interact with people. It's just a huge thing. Michael Scott asked, when chaperoning, do parents feel tempted to get involved if they see their kid's date going horribly? I'm trying to think. My husband and I had a couple little spats when we were dating, but I don't remember the parents ever getting involved. They just kind of let us work our way through it, which is good. That's what I would do with my children. I'd give advice if they asked it, but I would let them work through. Kids are going to, like I said, when it kind of goes back to the whole argument thing with the mom and dad arguing in front of the kids, they're going to need to see you work things out, and your child needs to learn how to work things out. In fact, I don't remember ever a time where either one of our parents ever got involved if we were having an argument or it was just going badly. And you know what? I probably wouldn't, just because that's just life. And they're going to have situations like that where dates go wrong or dates go badly or they have a bad day. They're going to need to learn to work through it. And, that's a good indication of how the other person is going to deal with stress, or pressure, seeing how they react. So it might be good. I wouldn't step in if there's something going on. I'd like to see how both of them would handle it, honestly. So Jessica said, thank you for this episode. My kids are young, but it's nice to have the wisdom. Well, even when they're young, like I said, you can work with them on this. You'll have to teach children how to interact with people. And even when it comes to maybe your child being a little too open or, telling all the family secrets, family secrets, I don't mean anything bad. I just mean mom was in her bathrobe till lunch, things like that. I just took my 3 youngest daughters to the dentist last week. I was in the waiting room with the baby and I was feeding her and I could hear Lana in the back. Lana was in the back with the hygienist. I could kind of see him. You can see through the window. And I heard the hygienist talking to her. And I was like, I heard Lana just jabbering on and on and on. And I'm like, great, what is Lana telling her? I was so nervous. I'm like, I don't even know what does Lana even have to talk about this long? She's 4. So I asked Lana after she got out, I'm like, what were you talking about? And she said, oh, I was just talking about Bubby and Kelly. And so she was talking about the family, she said. So I still don't know what she was talking about, but my 4-year-old knows how to talk to people. That's not a problem in my house. And most of all my children know how to talk to people. But like I said, my oldest and then my oldest daughter, that was not always the case. She was, we really, really had to push her. Right, Abby? Yeah. Uh-huh. She's back there rocking baby right now. We really had to push her to come out of her comfort zone. And she's growing it into a delightful conversationalist. So I'm very, very happy about that. So anyways, I think that's a wrap. She's in the background. Do you want to bring Kelly over here? Is she awake? She's sleeping. There she is. She's sleeping. Someone said, anytime a sentence begins with sometimes my mommy. Yeah. Sometimes my mommy, what? What is she going to say? Allie is usually the one, though, isn't she?
Yeah,
Allie's the one that when she starts talking, I'm like, oh no, what is she going to say? So, yeah, there's Kelly. Did she eat that bottle?
Yeah, she ate the whole thing.
I've been trying to get her. My last 2 did not take bottles of any kind. So I've been trying to pump and give her bottles every so often just so she'll learn to take me and a bottle. So far she's been taking it and a passy. So that's good. I hope Kelly keeps all her hair. She's got a lot of it still. It hasn't fallen out. So Yeah, Abby's a good big sister. Sometimes I think she thinks the baby is hers.
Yeah, today you kept telling me to put her down and stop holding her.
Yes, she's going to be so spoiled. She holds her constantly. I'm like, Abby, put her down. She needs to wake up now because she needs to eat. She's been sleeping the whole night, or the whole day, so I'm really worried about tonight. Pray for me. I don't think I'm going to get any sleep tonight. I think she's going to be up the whole night. So Kirsten said, thank you. This subject is so important. There are so many people hurting because they do not know how to form relationships and be close to people. And that's very true. And it's hard work to be a good friend. And it's hard work to have a good marriage. And it all comes down to communication. And people are not being taught how to communicate. It's totally different talking to someone behind a screen than talking face to face. And that's why you have to learn to be a good conversationalist. You have to teach your children how to interact with people. You have to teach your children to take the first step and be the friendly person and go out of their comfort zone. That's very, very important to me and to my children. I want to raise functioning adults, and this is how you do it. You raise functioning adults by teaching them how to interact with people, how to be socially aware. That's why with Allie, I'm like, Allie, we don't say that, or we don't, you don't tell people that. So teach them to be socially aware and all the good stuff that goes with that. So someone said, please do an episode in the future on weaning a breastfed baby. It's been super easy for me just because most of my babies wean themselves at about like a year. So I've never really had to go through much when it comes to weaning babies. Next week, I might have a lady on talking about household hacks or cleaning hacks, household things. She has a podcast. I need to get a hold of her and make sure that she's available next week. But we might have something about house cleaning next week for the show next week. So thank you for joining me, and thank you for all your questions and comments. And we will talk to you next week. Bye, guys.